Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as I show you how to divide Lamium. So let's go. Lamium, also known as Deadnettle, is hardy in my zone here in New Hampshire, Zone 5B. It is a wonderful ground cover, and even though you can plant it in the sun, it thrives and really shines when you put it out in a shady area and give it plenty of water. Now, Lamium is a ground cover, so it does what ground covers are supposed to do, which is cover the ground. It can take over an area, so you want to make sure you place it somewhere where you want it to basically take over a section of your garden. What I really like about Lamium, other than the pretty leaves on it that really pop in a shady part of my yard, is that I can then take Lamium and also put it in different pots, containers, hanging baskets, and it acts as a beautiful spiller in a container. So keep that in mind if you are going to have Lamium. Take some pieces of it and definitely pop it into a container or two. Last year, I took my creeping phlox, I divided it into pieces, and I put it towards the front of this flower bed. I did the same thing with Lamium that I have in my yard. And I looked at it this year, and I don't love it. I don't like the contrast between the colors. I think that it's too much ground cover going on in the front. So I picked keeping the creeping phlox in this bed and removing the Lamium. I have a ton of Lamium on the other side of my house. But since I'm going to remove sections of this Lamium, I figured it'd be a great opportunity to show you my process for digging it up, dividing it, and then planting it. So coming closer, I'm going to show you my process for getting it dug up. Can you believe that this was a very small little piece of Lamium? And look how big it's gotten over time. And what happens with Lamium is it basically creeps and crawls on the soil. And as it creeps and crawls, it roots itself into the soil. So even though I planted it in just one spot, it has basically rooted itself in a couple of different spots in this bed here. You could definitely use a large garden shovel if you want to, but I'm just going to use a small hand shovel, and this works perfectly fine. So I'm just going to lift this up, try to find where it has rooted itself in. And then I'm just going to dig. And fortunately, it has a pretty shallow root system to it. So you can see right here, there's a piece that rooted itself in. And you can just come in here and basically tug. And that was pretty easy. Fortunately, this will be an easy job for me to do for this flower bed. But let's go ahead and start looking at this plant closely so I can go over some different parts on it and how we're going to divide it. When you've dug it up, it looks kind of like a mess. It was definitely a mat, and you basically have to take this mat apart. So the first thing I like to do is look for any weeds that might be in here, because that does happen with ground covers. You might have weeds, you might have grass, so you just want to make sure you remove those. So what I like to do next is inspect the plant. And right here, you can see that you have a piece that has a root on it. So that's a great piece that we can go ahead and we can remove this piece from the mother plant. And notice that the root is on this piece here that we removed, but it's quite a large piece and we don't really need all that top growth. We really only need a small amount of the root down below and a small amount of the green material. Could you keep all of the top growth? Absolutely. But I figure let's just get this plant to produce more roots at the bottom. So I want to cut right above this leaf node right here because I want to get the plant to put its energy into creating more roots and just to be more compact. The piece that we cut off, well, it's not diseased, nothing wrong with it, so I can put this in my compost pile. And this piece right here, we can then place this either in the ground in our landscape somewhere or in a pot. The key is you want to make sure you're giving it plenty of water for a number of days. You don't want this to dry out. For me, I'm going to be placing these in pots because I'm going to be putting these as part of my backyard plant nursery. So I'm just turning this around more. And the other thing that I could do at this point is I could basically tug at this big, huge piece here if I want to. And just by tugging it, you'll see that it naturally divides itself, which is nice. And again, we can just kind of look things over and see if there's another place where we can make a cut. And I'm noticing on this plant here, I could definitely take this piece here and make a cut right there. So I'm choosing again to keep my pieces shorter because they're just going to get potted up. You could plant this whole thing if you want, but personally I think it's better for the plant to take off as much of the top growth as you can and let the plant put the energy into creating a stronger plant and a more robust root system. So I'm cutting right above a leaf node. So far we have 1, 2, 3 plants. And because I'm going to be putting these in pots, I want them to look nice in a pot. I don't just want it to be one sad looking piece. So I could take them kind of like this, as long as the roots are down at the bottom, which they are. And I could pot these up just into a small 3-inch pot. But before I do that, I'm going to cut a few more pieces and then I'm going to show you my process for potting these up. I'm just going to add some compost that I get for free from a local transfer station close to me. I'm going to take my pieces and I'm just going to make sure that the roots are all down near the bottom. And now I can just backfill with the soil. In terms of depth, you just want to make sure that the bottom part of the plant, where the roots end and where the plant begins, you want that to be above soil level. Just the roots should be below soil level. I know it looks like a small little sad plant, but trust me, it will take off. What I'm going to do is give it some water, and then I'm going to keep it in the shade for at least 1 to 2 days, just so I can recover from the stress. I just wanted to show you, I have a hanging basket, actually a number of them that I put together. It has Creeping Jenny, which is a perennial, and it also has Impatiens that I started from seed. It has some Alyssum that was cut back recently, but will bloom soon enough. And then here's the Lamium, and just look how pretty it looks in a hanging basket. And what I like to do is I like to come in and deadhead my Lamium. So like this right here, I would just come in right here and just pinch this piece off. Because that blossom has gone by, it's spent. So if I remove it, it tells the plant to create more flowers. Right here is a flower bud, so the Lamium will be blooming soon enough. I wasn't lying when I said I have a ton of Lamium. And in my backyard, there is a lot, and this area does need to be weeded, but it's a great time for me to be going around and collecting the Lamium and digging it up, moving it around the yard, putting it in container pots. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I love Lamium. I love having it in the landscape, but again, plant it with caution and definitely use it in your pots and containers. If you have any questions, please drop them down in the comment section below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.